There's this movie out that's very popular amongst the QAnon crowd. It's called The Sound of Freedom. It stars Jim Caviezel. Jim Caviezel is a QAnon follower. He's also the actor who played Jesus in the Mel Gibson anti-Semitic S&M exploitation film, The Passion of the Christ. He plays a guy named Tim Ballard in this movie, The Sound of Freedom. And what's funny about Tim Ballard is Tim Ballard himself has been accused and investigated for aiding and abetting human trafficking. So, as is the case many times with these QAnon supporters, people who are really obsessed with kids like that tend to be really obsessed with kids. Anyways, Jim is out promoting the movie, and of course, all of these people are asking him about getting cast as Jesus in The Passion of the Christ. So here's one of his stories of being cast as Jesus in The Passion of the Christ. And Jim takes this opportunity to express exactly how important he is. And by the way, you know, he believes that God called him to play Jesus, along with the thousands of other people, including Andy Dick.
Wait, but the material wasn't there, and I was talking to him about the material, and then all of a sudden Mel pivot to something.
And by the way, you're going to have to excuse his low, serious tone. You might have to strain to hear Jim's voice, because Jim has to also express to everybody listening exactly how troubled and burdened he is by his own depth.
And then I went back to when I was a young man in the theater, and I said, oh my God, this is why he called me to become an actor.
See?
And I said, you want me to play Jesus, don't you? And he looked at me, he was smoking a cigarette, and he just...
Of course he was smoking a cigarette. Mel Gibson's like one of those badass priests on the edge, you know? He's like super cool, but he wears a collar, you know? He's like a priest, but he rides a motorcycle, you know what I mean? He's like Father Guido Sarducci.
Yeah, put his head down. And he was really scared, and I said, okay. What? What? Like, how can you... What? Okay. So I had all that preparation. What was the fear, do you think?
The fear. What was the fear? Jim Caviezel openly preaches the gospel of adrenochrome. Now, while there is a long tradition of anti-Semitic conspiracy theories that involve blood, adrenochrome is very specific because it came from Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas, as you guys all know. But I just want to point out that that was a bit in the book. That was a gag. It was a joke. These guys have taken a joke written from a book 50 years ago by an author who hates them, and they have made it an integral part of their conspiracy gospel. So when right-wingers sit there and try and say that the left has no sense of humor, first ask them for a solid example of a right-wing comedian, a comedian being canceled by the left. Actually canceled. And then remind them of the adrenochrome conspiracy theory and the fact that they literally cannot take a joke.
Okay, so I had all that preparation. What was the fear, do you think?
What was the fear?
Well, 2 days later he called me at my house, and I was taking the garbage out. And I heard, I picked up the phone, and I said, yeah, I was busy. And he goes, hey, Jim, it's Mel. And I said, Mel who? He goes, I don't know, Mel Brooks. Hey, he was smoking a cigarette, and he goes, do you still want to play this Jesus guy?
This Jesus guy. Do you still want to play this Jesus guy? Don't you love it when these hyper-religious people try to downplay their own religion? Dude, this is a thing I see all the time. Sam Kinison even did a version of this mixing of the sacred and profane by doing this whole bit about how, Jesus wasn't married. Because how's he going to explain 3 days being dead for 3 days? Here's the thing. And you'll see this in the movie Dogma, the Kevin Smith movie. There's a lot of like, JC is my main man, Jesus is my homeboy kind of bits that never work. They're always cringy. They're always embarrassing. And it's called mixing the sacred and the profane. It's when you make the holy pedestrian. They think it's funny because they have all this reverence in their heart. So in their minds, this is hilarious. But to most people, it's like saying Paul Bunyan is the first rock star. It doesn't really add up. But it's literally a sin. So all you religious folks who try to do this bit all the time, this thing like he does, this guy Jesus, this Jesus guy, yeah, you're gonna burn in hell for your dumb joke that nobody laughs at.
And he goes, do you still want to play this Jesus guy? If you do, you may never work in this town again. And I was like, scared. It scared me. I was telling you, I just bought a Lamborghini.
Yeah, so when Mel Gibson told Jim Caviezel, you may never work in this town again, what he was telling him is, we are going to make a film that is a direct incitement to violence toward Jewish people. So you may not make any large purchases this year because some people may choose to fight back. Let me tell you a scene from this movie. Let me describe a scene from this movie if you haven't seen the movie. There's a scene where a group of rabbis bribe Judas to betray Jesus. First of all, this is completely invented by Mel Gibson. Now, the funny part is, when they take the money, it's a bag of coins, they throw it to Judas. It goes in slow motion. Just like in a Mel Gibson action movie when somebody's throwing a pistol to someone else and then they catch it in slow motion. Except this time when Judas catches the coins spill all over the ground and he drops to the ground fast and he starts scurrying and scooping up the coins, greedily, while the rabbis laugh and rub their hands together. Because apparently, while these rabbis completely control the Roman Empire, according to Mel Gibson, they don't know how to tie a knot. That's the kind of movie that we're talking about.
Lamborghini. And I was, I'm gonna have to give all this stuff back. And I was scared for a moment, and then this peace came over me. And I could feel it. It was from heaven. And I said, look, man, we're all called to carry our cross. If you don't pick up and carry your cross, you will be crushed by the weight of it.
So they essentially picked a fight with an entire people. And then when there's blowback, and there really wasn't a lot of blowback, they're martyrs. You get how that scam works? And then we're asked to forgive these people by somebody like Stephen Colbert, who himself is Catholic. And I always wonder about Stephen Colbert. Why are we required to forgive people who refuse to redeem themselves? Because here we are again with the same kind of propaganda that we got 20 years ago.
You will be crushed by the weight of it. And then he got really quiet on the phone. And then I said, oh my God. He said, what? I said, I just realized my initials are JC and I'm 33 years old. And he goes, God, you're freaking me out. He hung up the phone.
Yeah, first of all, he hung up the phone. He didn't even say goodbye. That's rude. Second of all, I just realized I am Jesus. I remember vaguely. I vaguely. I remember this. I believe Martin Scorsese had a price on his head. Literally had a price on his head for making a great film called The Last Temptation of Christ. His career has flourished. You know why? Because it was the people like Jim Caviezel and Mel Gibson who were probably making those threats themselves. So, no, I don't buy the whole martyrdom thing. These guys were not martyred for their faith. They weren't even martyred for their hate. They're doing just fine. And I do have to admit, though, having seen The Passion of the Christ, the film is a triumph of will. Get it? Okay.